Disclaimer, my visual aids will not be used during this rehearsal video. BAM! Explosion. Fire, smoke, and debris scatter everywhere. 7 lives are put on the line. 7 are lost. The Challenger space shuttle was destroyed. We will discuss the events leading up to its demise, the disaster itself, and the aftermath. In 1972, NASA began working on a new space shuttle, the STA-099. The machine was finished in 1978. Excuse me. But in 1979, NASA started renovations on the shuttle. This is when it got the name Challenger, named after a British warship, as seen here, visual aid of the British warship. In 1983, the Challenger launched its first flight. Soon, it became the lead shuttle, flying most missions. The job of the Challenger and its crew members was to run scientific experiments and deploy satellites. The Challenger launched 9 missions and flew the first American woman, African American, Canadian, and more into space. The next task for NASA was in 1986. The launch date was January 22nd, but it was delayed 6 days due to extreme weather conditions. On the freezing day of January 28th, 1986, the Challenger was ready for its 10th mission from Cape Canaveral, Florida. This mission involved 7 passengers, including a pilot, several mission specialists, a commander, and 2 payload specialists, with one of them being a teacher named Sharon McAuliffe. Sharon is on the far left of this visual. She's the one with the genuine smile, but the nervousness in her eyes. Now, several mechanics had warned NASA about problems with the rings that were holding the shuttle together, claiming that they might fail under low temperatures. It is January after all, but NASA continued anyway. There were news stations carrying this launch, people at Cape Canaveral watching live, and NASA was broadcasting the launch to many schools because of the participation of Sharon McAuliffe. At 11:39 a.m., the Challenger launched into the sky. It ascended farther and farther and farther until it hit 46,000 feet at 73 seconds. This quote from Sarah Pruitt explains it all. The fuel tank itself collapsed and tore apart, and the resulting flood of liquid oxygen and hydrogen created the huge fireball believed by many to be an explosion. Sarah is a writer for the popular TV network and the informative online journals at History.com. Here's a clip of the accident. 70 to 90 second video of the accident being played. At the end, I switch my visual aid to a new picture. As you can see, the Challenger ripped into pieces, the flames grew, and the passengers inside were hopeless. All major news stations cut away, except from CNN. Neither the reporter from CNN you heard, or the man from NASA, knew what had just happened. They were speechless, almost starstruck on what they just witnessed. Kids and adults alike were both in shock from what they saw. Quote, the morning of the launch, some 17% of the U.S. viewing audience watched the launch live as all those idle notions and distant fantasies about an optimistic future in space were blown across the Florida sky and killed just as surely as Krista McAuliffe, the 5 NASA astronauts, and 2 payload specialists had been, says Ryan Faith from Vice News, who watched the whole thing live, and has done extensive research on the topic. Immediately, Ronald Reagan looked into this disaster. At first, he spoke to the public, quoting pilot John Gillespie McGee Jr., saying that they will never forget the 7 passengers of the Challenger. Reagan then made a commission to find out what happened, with William Rogers at the head, joined by Neil Armstrong and astronaut Sally Ride. After extensive digging and research, they found evidence of degradation due to weather. But they found something even more catastrophic. NASA had a miscommunication problem with failure to listen and also communicate effectively. If NASA's employees would have been able to do these simple tasks, then the Challenger would have never shot off on January 28, 1986. The Challenger space shuttle and the passengers inside could have had a different outcome based on the improvements that the mechanics and engineers made to the space shuttle and the possible day of the next launch. But that's a what if. During this commission, NASA went on a 32-month hiatus within the shuttle program. During the aftermath, the remains of the passengers were searched for, given to family, and buried at Arlington National Cemetery, while the remains of the plane were buried in a missile silo in Cape Canaveral. It's also changed NASA's plans to send civilians into space by stopping the program altogether. It wasn't until 2007 when Barbara Morgan, Sherry Mulholland's backup for the Challenger flight, flew aboard the Endeavour 21 years later. Still, to this day, NASA honors those lost on a day of remembrance. The Challenger disaster could and is now being used as a learning tool for kids and adults, teaching them that a miscommunication could be devastating, even life-threatening. It's crazy to think about, isn't it? The family of the deceased crew members made a learning experience for the kids in another way by creating the Challenger Center for Space Science Education program. This program lets students simulate and learn about space shuttles and space missions to teach kids about the great world of space and maybe make some future astronauts. The Challenger was a milestone in American technology and contributed a lot to the world of science. It launched for 9 missions up until the day of January 28th, 1986. On a cold Florida morning, the Challenger soared into the cerulean black sky with promises of a brighter future, until it went up into a ball of flame and the shuttle itself was demolished. This disaster was unprecedented for everybody at home, but NASA knew this could be a side effect. This entire thing could have possibly been avoided if all NASA employees had taken Oral Communications 1105 with Connie Myers-Kurt. The crowd laughs. I take a deep breath. On a serious note, the Challenger still leaves behind a tattered legacy, but America's people have changed it from a national tragedy into something that enhances the understandings of men, women, and children alike. Thank you.